Tessa's POV. The next morning rolled around, as I moaned and stretched out on my overly large bed, having had the best sleep of a lifetime. I could seriously get used to this comfort and no alarm clock, I'll admit to that. The first rays of sunlight streamed in through the little gaps in the ornate curtains, casting a warm glow across my grand bedroom suite as I smiled at the soft colors they had created. I slowly sat up, looking around briefly before the events of last night began to swirl their way back into my mind like a confusing storm. The revelation about Kane being the alpha sent shivers down my spine once again, and the unexpected encounter in his bedroom had left me feeling disoriented to say the least, topped with the concerning drama between Erin and her ridiculous suitor. She needs my help, and yet, I still don't quite know what to do for her. All I knew was that I couldn't just leave her to suffer through that. As I swung my legs over the edge of the bed, still grappling with the reality of my situation, a gentle knock echoed throughout the room, causing me to squint towards the door. It was a stark contrast to Kane's usual, more aggressive knock, which only indicated to me that either it was somebody entirely different or that he was trying his utmost hardest to be calm and collected today. Curiosity replacing caution, I approached the door and opened it to find a maid standing there, holding a pristine white envelope in her hands. "Good morning, Miss Tessa. The Alpha has requested that I deliver this note to you in person at once," he said, to open it right away. She spoke with a soft smile, handing me the envelope as I smiled back at her and thanked her, taking it nervously before watching her retreat back down the corridor. I closed the door over, before breaking the little wax seal in order to unfold the note, which had been folded neatly. My eyes instantly moved to scan over the message, which reads, "I would like to see you downstairs for breakfast at 10:30, don't be late." From the big scary Alpha. The way he had even signed the damn note made me feel completely mortified at how dramatic I had been last night about it all, about him. I glanced towards the small clock situated by my bed when seeing that Kane wanted to see me for breakfast at 10:30, which currently only gave me just over 15 minutes. Crap. Panic surged its way into my chest as I glanced at the time once more. 15 minutes seemed cruel. I couldn't help but curse a little and wonder when exactly did he write this and ask for it to be delivered if she only just brought it to me now. It couldn't have been long ago, which meant that he deliberately hasn't given me much time. Rushing around to freshen up, I couldn't shake the nerves that had settled in the pit of my stomach. What would today bring? Was this a test of some sort to see if I could find the damn breakfast room in 15 measly minutes on my own? Probably. I tried to push the thoughts aside and focus on getting ready as quickly as I could, tossing on a pair of summery shorts and a white tee, before fixing my hair back into a ponytail and proceeding to the bathroom to brush my teeth. Dressed and somewhat composed, I made my way out of the room and downstairs, with my bare feet sinking into the plush carpet with each step leading me down. The grandeur of the mansion only seemed even more imposing in the daylight. How does he seriously expect for me to get fully dressed and to find this place on my own in such a time scale? Technically speaking, I thought that he would cut me some slack with it being only my first full day here in this home, or should I say, my first day here in this never-ending castle. I decided that the dining room would be my best bet to look first, and thankfully I remembered the way there as I neared the familiar entrance, my heart racing without knowing the current time and whether or not I was bay. IND or not. His note warned not to be late, and I didn't want to start off the day by defying him, regardless of if it were big or small. The dining room, found bathing in the fresh morning light, appeared as regal as it did last night, only brighter. The table, now cleared of any dinner settings, showcased a bright display of flowers in the center, topped with an incredible, mouth-watering, breakfast buffet. Confusion coated my features, as I glanced around at the empty room to find nobody else yet present. This does seem to be the breakfast room though, right? But where is Kane? Had I misunderstood the note? A sudden sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach as I wondered if this was another one of Kane's unpredictable tests. Before I could ponder further, a voice echoed confidently into the room, making itself known. "Tessa, glad you could make it with only a minute to spare. Well done, little human. The big bad wolf won't have to eat you up just yet," he mocks, as I divert my eyes downwards in horror. He won't quit teasing me about being so scared of him, will he? With how I reacted so strongly to finding out that he was the alpha last night? It seemed that he wasn't prepared to let this one go. I hesitated for a moment, before I followed his lead and approached the table, taking the seat beside him just as I had done the previous night. Kane's eyes followed me, his smirk widening as if my presence alone merely amused him. The tension from the previous night lingered, and I couldn't shake the feeling that every move I made was being scrutinized. "Why so tense, my little human? Still worried about me being an alpha, are you?" he hums, as I shake my head and remain silent. And no, I mumble quietly, as he chuckles in a rich, deep laugh, continuing on. I'd hope not. Considering I've invited you to a lovely breakfast with me. What is there to fear when I treat you this well? He jokes, grabbing my glass and filling it with fresh orange juice before filling his own. I sigh heavily, feeling guilty again for my reaction. Sure, I had seen his vicious temper, but the truth of the matter was he has so far been nicer to me than what Erin has had to put up with. My poor Erin. I can't even begin to think about the treatment she had to endure last night living with him. But the only promising thing about it all was that during the 2-week trial period, wolves were banned from inappropriately touching or having sex with the females, just to avoid any mistakes that by chance, the wolves end up changing their minds and not wanting to keep us around. It was another fair law, one in which I was thankful for, especially now, for Erin's sake. If anything of the sort happened, Erin would be entitled to report it to the leader of the pack, which in this case, was Cain. I turn my head as Cain clears his throat, breaking me out of my daydream as I glance over the table, which was adorned with an array of breakfast delights, fresh fruits, pastries, rolls, eggs, bacon, you name it. Help yourself, Cain states, a gleam of amusement in his eyes as if he was enjoying our morning a little extra today for whatever reason. I glanced at the spread, unsure of where to even begin, before deciding to go with some simple toast and eggs. He watches me cautiously, allowing for me to finish stacking my plate, before he makes a move to stack up his own plate, filling it with pretty much everything that would fit. Will he seriously even eat all of that? So, Tessa, he starts after finishing his first bite, his voice low and deliberate, tell me, what exactly would you like to do today if you could have the choice? He asks, his question opening up a possible opportunity for a new plan. This could be my chance. Well, I would really like to see Erin again at some point, to maybe even show her my room, or even go outside with her to explore the gardens. She loves flowers just as much as I do. I ramble, hoping that he would agree to my effortless plan and all would be well. Sounds like a nice idea, but no. He shrugs, looking bored, as my heart is crushed by his blunt response. Really? My voice sounds defeated, as he eyes me casually before taking another bite of his meal. I watch him chew, before taking another bite, as I decide to eat some of my own food with a small sigh, figuring that at this rate, he was done talking to me. I'll tell you why it's a no, he begins after a few long minutes pass, as I swallow my food and perk up to hear his explanation. I brought you all the way down here, to live in my home, to spend some quality time with me, not your friend, who you've spent basically every fucking minute with for years now anyway. You're being ridiculous, Tessa. You seen her last night too? He argues, seeming slightly irritated as I nod along in understanding of his point. He makes sense, but he doesn't quite get why I want to see her so bad. It's just that, I trail off, lost for words and almost forgetting who I was actually talking to. Damn. It's what? Spit it out then, Tess, and don't be shy? Cain pushes, using the little nickname he had created for me once more as I squirm on my chair in nervous thought. Do I tell him the truth? Since look at what happened when I decided to lie to him that one time, he totally lost his shit with me over that. I'm a little worried. I nod out to confirm my own statement, as Cain begins to eat again from beside me, waving his hand for me to elaborate further. I'm worried that she isn't happy here with her suitor, I admit, as Cain raises a brow and wipes his mouth with a napkin before responding instantly. Forget it, it's none of your business what goes on between other couples, Tessa. There are laws for a reason and I'll know if he doesn't follow them, but until then, just forget it. He might not be the nicest, but that's just how this process works. Some humans are lucky and some are not, and I suggest that you find yourself very fucking lucky considering that I haven't yet laid a hand on you for stepping out of line as often as you do. Be grateful, at least you have it good. Cain rants, his voice growing firmer by the second as I shrink back in my chair hearing his threats. How could he be so calm and approachable one moment and yet so closed off and stern with me the next? Do you understand me? Quit poking around in another man's business. If I thought before that you'd cause me any added stress or trouble, then you wouldn't be sitting here right now, trust me. Cain's words cut deep this time, as my lip quivers slightly as I fight back the tears. I didn't expect him to react so harshly when I had only opted to tell him the truth about my concerns. Now he's almost wishing that he didn't bring me here at all. Cain's stern words hung in the air, creating a heavy atmosphere around the breakfast table. I struggled to meet his gaze from then on, feeling the weight of his disapproval crushing down on me as we finished our meals in silence. My attempt to express my genuine concern for my friend had backfired, and I couldn't shake the sense of vulnerability under his watchful eyes. Now, I'm going to ask you this again, Tessa, and you better think before you answer. What is it that you want to do today? Kane questions, as some of his staff enter the room to help clear the remnants of the table. I think on it, not wanting to say the wrong thing, since the day had only just started and already I had messed up his light attitude. And maybe you could show me the G garden? Or maybe we could visit the tea town that we drove through yesterday? I like looking around in the little shops, I admit with a shrug, my voice a low murmur as I suggest a new idea awaiting his next scrutiny, yet thankfully, none comes. Better, now let me go and grab my keys and wallet and we will head into town, go and put some shoes on and meet me back down here in 5 minutes. Kane instructs, standing as I instinctively stand with him. Relieved that he had seemed satisfied with my new suggestion, I felt the tension in my shoulders ease a little as I made my way back upstairs to fetch a pair of sneakers to wear. So far, I was finding that Kane was often temperamental and tricky to navigate with his moods being so drastic and sharp. One moment I felt so relaxed and open around him and the next I felt nervous and terrified of facing another outburst. But was this a normal wolf/human relationship? Was this the same for every pair year in and year out? Because all I can say is that it's a very tiring job. Let's just hope that I survive another day here, with my alpha suitor. Tessa's POV descending the grand staircase, I found Kane waiting by the entrance, his features composed as if nothing had transpired only moments ago at the breakfast table. I tried to match his casual demeanor, suppressing any lingering anxiety as I approached him, his eyes fixated on me making the walk more intense than necessary. Ready to explore the town, my little human? He quipped, a teasing glint in his eyes that sent a shiver down my spine. I wish he wouldn't call me his little human so much, since he does know my name. I nod however, not trusting my voice at the moment before we turn and approach a black G-Wagon style vehicle, of course painted in his favorite color which was black, parked our front and waiting for him. The drive into the nearby town was silent, as we passed the same views as before, first the large housing estate leading to the Gold Gates, down the hill and then into the border of town. The imposing presence of Kane driving beside me was making starting up a conversation feel like a risky venture. And I've so far learned firsthand that the slightest comment can set this man off in a frenzy. We drove into a parking lot, as Kane found a spot instantly at the front, stopping the car and drawing the attention of many nearby people's eyes as I figured that they must recognize his vehicle. I didn't quite think this trip through until now. This was their alpha we are talking about, who would very soon be seen wandering around town with little old me, a short human girl who was quite literally a nobody. It was a tension that I hadn't yet prepared myself for as of today, but there was no going back now. As we climbed out of the car, with the sun streaming down on us, causing me to be grateful for my choice to wear shorts this morning, we strolled our way through the quaint streets as I couldn't help but marvel at the vibrant shops and charming atmosphere of the town in general around us. Kane, surprisingly, seemed more relaxed outside the mansion's confines as he nodded in acknowledgement to those who greeted him politely on passing with many "Hello Alpha" or "Lovely day today, isn't it Alpha?" comments to show their respect. Let me know if you want to go in anywhere, Kane states, as our steps slow and I take in the length of the shopping street in which we now stood on. I glance around, trying to pick something I would enjoy, before my eyes land on a little bookstore across the street. There, I point shyly as his eyes follow my outstretched hand to the little brown store opposite us. The store itself looked a little old, but that was the quality that drew me in the most. I bet they have tons of great books hiding in there waiting to be read. With that, Kane thankfully nods, before we cross the busy road with caution, successfully reaching the other side and entering into the bookstore itself. Alpha. Oh. I didn't expect to see you in here today, or I would have tidied up a little more. Welcome. A young girl with large round glasses rushes to greet us, as my eyes grow wide at the masses of bookshelves with a variety of colors coating the walls. Thank you, Kane's voice is pleasant, surprising me as I smile a little up at him, appreciating that this evidently wasn't his sort of store to visit, yet he had agreed to it for me. I approach the first section of books, selecting one from the shelf that jumps out at me first. You can pick some and I'll buy them, Kane informs from behind me, as my heart skips a beat at the offer. What? Are you sure? You don't have to do that, I trail off, staring down at the little book in which I held tightly in my hands, longing to read its pages now that I had spotted it. I insist, try and pick 5 that will keep you occupied whenever you are bored. Kane shrugs, as I grin widely. 5 whole new books. I had almost finished my last book which I had brought with me on the flight, and therefore needed something to move on to for when it was done, This was a dream come true. Thank you, so much. I nod my appreciation, turning to him softly as his stern face remains the same, all but nodding once in return. With that, I waste no time on exploring the store, as Kane moves towards the exit to take a quick call, trusting me to navigate around the store on my own. This one's really great. I read it recently. The kind girl recommends a book to me, as I smile widely and take it from her to read the back. This does sound really good, thank you. I thank her softly, enjoying our interaction since I hadn't freely spoken with anyone since being here. At least not an interaction that felt this natural and smooth. The girl seemed nice, and I couldn't help but think that she would make a great friend of mine and Aaron if we ever had the opportunity to meet up in the future. Did you get around 5? I jump a little when hearing Kane's voice again from behind me, as he must have ended the call and came back without me noticing. I look down at the books in my arms, counting 6 in total as I chew my lip. Damn, what one will I get rid of? They all sounded real good. What is the problem? Kane questions, noticing that I had stilled on the spot for a moment, staring down at each of them in my arms. There's 6 here, so I'm trying to decide what one to put back. I admit, before hearing him chuckle loudly from behind me. The girl kept herself busy, stacking some books back into the right sections of the store as I turned to look at Kane, unsure of what he was laughing at. Just get the 6. It's not a big deal. I only said 5 to encourage you to pick more than just one. Give me them, he states, shaking his head before taking all 6 from my hands. I blush a little, grateful for his unexpected generosity as I watched him pull out his wallet in order to pay for the books. We made our way towards the counter, where Kane handed the stack of books to the smiling shopkeeper who scanned and bagged them up for us. As she tallied up the purchase, I couldn't help but glance at the titles and feel a surge of excitement about diving in to read them. This day was seeming to get a little better already. The bell above the door chimed as we left the bookstore, and Kane opted to carry the bag containing my newfound treasures for me. The town's charm continued to unfold as we explored more little shops as Kane insisted that I buy anything I want, which I of course didn't want to do since he had just paid for my new books. We meandered through the town, Kane's presence commanding attention from both humans and werewolves alike as we passed by. The townspeople greeted him with a mix of respect and admiration, creating a noticeable aura of authority around him as they watched on at their alpha walking around with an unknown female. As we passed a quaint little cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air. The enticing smell suddenly spurred an idea, and I turned to Kane with a hopeful expression. What? You want to go in here next? Kane suggests, as I nod, thankful that he had gotten the idea as we headed straight for the door to enter. Kane's intense eyes surveyed the cafe, and after a moment's consideration, he nodded towards a seat by the window, a hint of excitement flashing across his features. Coffee it is then, my little human. He chimes, seeming to be a fan of the idea as I smiled and followed him, ignoring the attention in which we naturally drew. The waitress, recognizing Kane the moment we had entered, quickly approached as I took note of how she pulled down her shirt a little, sticking her breasts up more than what was probably necessary. Whoa, was this a normal occurrence for him? Being the alpha and all? I would imagine that females would long to be his partner. Kane paid her no attention as she practically leaned herself across our table, as he ordered a black coffee, while I opted for a caramel latte, a drink I had only had a handful of times when out in town with my mom back home. The waitress didn't look at me once, remaining focused on Kane, as she lingered a while longer, causing for him to eventually look up from the menu at her, as I felt my heart sink a little watching his eyes trail up from her chest to her face. Is there a problem here? He hissed, clearly irritated by the female, as I tensed up a little in my chair from across him. That wasn't how I expected him to react. If she's smart, she will run off. Anything else I can do for you, Alpha? Anything at all, she asks, her voice leaking with desperation as she pouts her lips and offers him a glance down her shirt which causes my insides to churn. Why are some women like this? So bold. How about you do your fucking job and take that order back to the kitchen so that I don't have to wait an hour for my drink? Kane sneers, as my lips part at how rude and dismissive he was as I watched the female retreat instantly, embarrassed and ashamed that she had taken a shot at him. I was almost a little proud seeing how unbothered he was by other females, considering that he had chosen to spend his 2-week trial period with me, and not them. At least he was somewhat respectful towards me, right? As we waited for our drinks, a sense of anticipation hung in the air. The cafe offered a temporary escape from the rigid dynamics of the mansion, providing an opportunity for a more relaxed interaction between us both after this morning's encounter. Tell me, Tessa, what drew you to the particular books you chose in the shop? Kane inquired, his gaze fixed on me with a curiosity that hinted at a genuine interest. I thought on it for a moment. Before replying, I like books that are mysterious and I also like romance novels, so I decided to get a mixture. Oh, and the nice girl back there recommended one of them to me too. I explained, since he had missed the encounter when he had gone off to take a call. A man came back to our table with our drinks moments later, as he smiled brightly and placed each cup down in front of us. I figured that the girl from before was no doubt too embarrassed to come back to our table, and that would explain why this man was now tending to us instead. Anything else for you both today? The man asks, as Kane shakes his head bluntly, not even bothering to pay him a glance. With that, he nods, leaving us in peace, as I visibly watch Kane's shoulders relax as he takes a long sip from his coffee. Kane leaned back, his eyes never leaving mine. I'm glad you found a store here that you like, he states, as I smile a little at the fact. I would love to go back again whenever I need a new book. Hopefully he won't mind taking me back again sometime in the future. As we sat for a while to finish our coffee, the ambience of the town beckoned for me to explore it further from outside of the cafe's window. Ready to go? We have an hour left before I need to head back home for a meeting, Kane informs me, as I stand from my position understanding that he was a busy man, being an alpha and all. We left, moving along further down the street, as my eyes landed on a cute little flower store. I loved flowers, and so did Aaron. As we passed the store, with me slowing my pace in order to look in at the shop window, my thoughts drifted back to Aaron and the unease in which still remained about her current situation. I mustered the courage to bring it up again, choosing my words carefully this time around as I spoke. Kane, about Aaron, I attempted to say, hearing him groan slightly. He cut me off with a stern look, a warning flashing across his eyes as we stood out in a public space before his curious pack members. I thought we agreed to leave that topic behind, Tessa. His sharp tone sent a chill through me, making me retreat into an uneasy silence. Now wasn't the right time to try again, which saddened me as I ran out of ways to help my friend. We continued on our exploration of the town, my mind in turmoil as I raced to come up with plans that wouldn't get me into any trouble but would allow me to help my friend all the same. But finding no luck. The dual nature of Kane, alternating between moments of charm and sudden hostility, added to the complexity of the situation. I can't ask him for help, he's not interested. I liked being around him, and longed to survive the 2-week trial period successfully. However, I knew that I couldn't just leave my friend suffering only a matter of houses away from mine. What do I do? Tessa's POV. After a long afternoon of exploring the nearby town, we made a quick dash back to the house in order for Kane to make it in time for whatever important meeting he had in his diary for today. Our conversations were curt, ever since I had attempted to bring up Aaron once again, only seeming to piss him off more when I did. I'll be in my office for an hour or so, feel free to explore the house since you've barely seen any of it yet, just don't leave, because I'll find out if you do, he warns, pointing an accusing finger at me to inst. I yell his words as I all but nod and watch him walk off, leaving me by the front door. After Kane left for his meeting, the mansion beckoned me to unravel its mysteries. He did say I could, right? I decided to start downstairs, opening up some random doors first before working my way up. I discovered more rooms that spoke of luxury, elegance, and timelessness. In one room, I marveled at a grand piano, its polished surface gleaming under the soft glow of chandeliers as I wondered to myself whether or not Kane could play. I eventually got bored of the first floor, and so decided to venture up. Instead of going towards my own room in which I knew all too well by now, I turned down in the other direction, a way I hadn't yet gone. As I ventured deeper down the hallways, I stumbled upon a room seemingly frozen in time. Boxes of forgotten trinkets and memorabilia lined the shelves, and a thick layer of dust cloaked everything. It felt like a sanctuary of memories left to fade away, deliberately being ignored in the darkness of the room. Among the dusty relics, a framed photo caught my eye. The glass was clouded with neglect, but the image beneath was vivid, a younger Kane, a version of him which seemed less stern and intense, as he stood on a bright sunlit beach smiling from ear to ear. If I had to guess, I would say he was around my own age here, which meant that this could have only been taken a few years ago. I took instant note of the beautiful young blonde woman which clung to him dearly, the two of them sharing the happy moment together as her arms hung playfully around his neck. To put things gently, the pair seemed timelessly in love. A pang of unease settled into my chest as I stared on at the mystery girl. Who was she, this woman captured in a moment of intimacy with the formidable alpha? Questions swirled in my mind, and a sense of intrusion accompanied the discovery. I looked around at the many dust-gathered boxes, talking note of the dresses and heeled shoes which were displayed in the far corner. Was this room filled with this girl's things? Who else could this stuff belong to if not her? The mansion's grandeur suddenly felt like a facade, concealing stories and connections I was not yet privy to. The weight of the unspoken hovered in the air, making my exploration more complex and unsettling. Deciding not to intrude further into Kane's past, I leave and close the door to the room gently behind me. I still for a moment, back in the brightly lit hall, as I press my back to the wooden door and take a moment to catch my breath. The discovery left me on uncertain ground, and the mansion's walls seemed to echo with the secrets they guarded. I couldn't mention my findings to Kane, since by the looks of things, the things left behind in that room were set there in order to be forgotten. I brushed myself off, sighing heavily, before I turned and steadily continued down the corridor towards the next room. As I continued my exploration, the grandeur of the mansion carried a new layer of complexity, and the untold stories within its walls became palpable, leaving me with a sense of disquiet that lingered. Many of the main rooms had evidently been decorated to look more modern, in contrast with some of the hidden ones I was now stumbling across that seemed to have gone untouched for what felt like 50 years. Empty bedrooms and spare bathrooms was mostly what I had discovered next, as I sighed and decided to plod my way back down the main staircase in search of the kitchen to fetch myself a drink. I knew that I still had many rooms left to explore, but I couldn't ignore the other thought which was still nagging at me: what about Erin? Erin desperately needed me, and I still hadn't worked out how and if I could even do anything to help her. There must be something, I thought to myself, groaning slightly as I round the last corner towards the kitchen area, or so I hoped. I had gone the right way again, before I suddenly collide with a hard chest, knocking me sideways and into the closest wall. My hands flail outwards, as a short scream escapes from my lips before I crash against the hard brick. Shit, sorry. I hear a familiar light-hearted tone, before a loud cackle is released next, causing me to turn wide-eyed to find one of Kane's friends, Seth. It's okay. I try to compose myself as quickly as possible, using the wall to stand myself back upright. You humans are so damn fragile. He shakes his head, teeth growing out into another smile as my cheeks flare a little. I suppose that the whole scene was pretty damn dramatic, the way I flew over into the wall just from bumping into him, and with the thought, I laugh a little, which I couldn't prevent from escaping. Seth, however, takes this as an opportunity to laugh loudly again too, and I was almost thankful to have someone as light-hearted as him around this place. For a male wolf, he didn't seem too scary. So where are you going? Kane actually sent me down here to check on you because the meeting is set to run over time, but I've been looking everywhere for you for 20 minutes now, Seth states, folding his arms and raising his brows expectantly. Oh. I was just, going to the kitchen, to grab a drink. I was exploring the R rooms. I rush out, my cheeks growing hot. Seth's eyes glint with amusement as he takes in my slightly flustered state. Exploring, huh? Well, welcome to the mysterious world of Kane's Fortress. It's amazing here, and trust me, you barely scratched the surface in this place, he explains, continuing to smile lightheartedly. Seth then turns to gesture down the hallway. Kitchen's that way. He points in the direction in which I definitely wasn't heading. Great. I couldn't even remember how to find the damn kitchen. He makes a move to walk in the said direction, as I hover behind him like a stray animal. As we approach the kitchen, the aroma of various spices and dishes wafts through the air. Seth opens the door for me with a flourish, and I step inside, greeted by the spacious, modern kitchen once again. Seth leans against the doorway, a grin plastered across his face. I actually wanted to ask you something, about that little friend of yours, he trails off, as my eyes widen at the randomness of the question. He wants to ask about Erin? I mean, that's the only friend I have, right? So then it must be about her. Erin? I blunder, as my head cocks to the side a little in confusion. That's the one. She's a pretty one, isn't she? Seth continues, as my heart begins to pound in my chest. This was not expected. But maybe this is my only chance to save her? Tessa's POV. Seth's sudden inquiry about Erin catches me completely off guard, and a mixture of hope and apprehension swirls within me. Could this be the opportunity I've been waiting for? He did seem engrossed at the dinner table when he seen how Leo had treated her. Perhaps there could be a minuscule chance that he thinks it's wrong too. Why yeah, she's a real good friend of mine, always has been. I respond cautiously, with my gaze locked onto Seth, searching for any sign of insight into where he was going with all of this. Seth then makes a move, pushing himself off from the door frame before approaching the nearby counter to take a seat. He gestures for me to sit down with him next, as I gulp slightly before finding my way over to the tall stool opposite him. He leans forward, elbows perked up on the countertop before sighing heavily, his eyes fixed on my own as he pauses to choose his next words. I'm not much of a dater, to be honest with you, Tessa. I always found you humans to be quite desperate for our attention whenever we had visited the centers on past judgment days. Seth chuckles and shakes his head, as I nod once, trying not to be offended by his honest words. I mean, judging by how most of the other girls in my age group would act, I could understand why he would gain such an opinion. After all, we were trained most of our lives to please the male wolves, so did that, in fact, make us somewhat desperate? But between you and I actually believe that maybe I've missed out this year on bagging myself a good one. Seth leans forward slightly, lowering his tone, as my eyes squint a little in confusion as I instinctively lean back. Is he coming on to me? Or is he still talking about Aaron? He's being very cryptic that it's hard to tell. But I hope it's the latter, because I don't wish to be caught up in any unnecessary drama during my time here. With that, as though sensing my surge of panic, he scoffs a little and leans back once again. Forgive me. I don't mean you. Kane would kill me if he even got that impression. He chuckles once more, allowing some air back into the room with his reassurance as I force back a smile of relief. Okay, well, does that mean he's still talking about Aaron? Look, from what I've seen, Tessa, there's obviously something not right about your little friend's situation. It's a real shame that she's been caught up with somebody like Leo. Seth talks on, as I blink profusely to digest his words. Between you and I, males like him shouldn't even be allowed to attend judgment days. He's nothing but a sleaze who sleeps around. Seth adds, as my heart sinks a little more when hearing just how awful Leo certainly was, and that's in the opinion of another male too. I suddenly felt that this conversation between us both wasn't actually real. Was Seth really on our side here? Is he deliberately oversharing his feelings with me to see what I'll say back? Maybe Kane has put him up to this to see if I will continue to beg for Aaron to be saved? Who knows? But I must be careful with this regardless of whether he was being totally genuine or not. Yes, but it's only a trial period, isn't it? I add, in hopes that something would magically change after the 2 weeks of us living here. If we are lucky, maybe Leo will just get fed up with Aaron and will move on to his next victim, ultimately not being able to settle down with anyone in the end. Perhaps some sex workers would suit a man like him best? Give him what he wants and take his money without the attached baggage? All I know is that Aaron is far too good for the likes of a man like him, and that's saying something considering that I've only met him once. Won't be a trial for long. Before you know it, he will be spitting out mini Leos. Seth states, his tone crisp as my eyes widen and my stomach churns at the thought. I can't hide the tears that build from his blunt statement, as I blink them back to avoid them spilling. Aaron doesn't deserve this life, not with him. Seth seems to take notice of my reaction, squinting a little before straightening himself up and clearing his throat. Sorry, that was quite blunt of me. You're obviously concerned for your friend. I get it. He attempts to say, as I nod twice and choose to remain silent, not trusting my voice in this current moment. Would it make you feel better if I went down there to check up on your friend? As the pack beta, it's not uncommon for me to do house checks to keep everyone in line. Seth suggests, sending a small bubble of hope my way. He would do that? But what if Kane finds out and thinks that I asked him to? After all, I have been going on and on about Aaron that he's sick of hearing about it. What's wrong? I can see the clocks turning in there. Seth points, as I shrug and inhale a small breath. It's just that I don't want T to get into any trouble with Kane. I admit, as Seth watches me cautiously. He obviously has a good relationship with Kane from what I've gathered so far, and doesn't seem to be completely terrified of him either, which he LPS, however, Kane very much still held the power over him. I get it, he's told you to keep your nose out of it, has he? Seth laughs, as I grow confused at why he found humor in my current dilemma. I all but nod in confirmation with his thoughts, as he shakes his head and continues laughing in amusement. He's a busy man, Tessa. He can't be asked dealing with all of the petty bullshit. That's why he leaves Anthony and me to do it. He's got the bigger shit to deal with, you know? He's not just an alpha, he's the alpha. Seth informs me, as I nod and stare down at the countertop in shame. He's right, he's a busy man, and here I am bothering him about helping my friend who he's only met once at a dinner. He honestly means no harm when he's harsh, trust me. It's a big deal for him to have even picked out a female from a judgment day this year, let alone bringing you back here for the trial weeks. Between you and me, he obviously likes you, Tessa, and is trying his best to fit you in around his flooded lifestyle. Seth talks on, before getting up from his position and approaching the fridge. I watch him, remaining seated, as his words calm my racing heart ever so slightly. From this conversation alone, I've learned that Seth is actually a pretty decent wolf. Soda? He asks from over his shoulder, grabbing one for himself as I nod in confirmation before he grabs another and closes the door, returning back to his seat. He hands me the drink, as I crack it open and enjoy the fizziness as it fills my mouth. Look, I'm happy to check up on your friend, and we don't have to mention anything to Kane if it makes you feel better. He won't have time to give a shit anyway. Seth shrugs, drinking from the can as I think on it for a moment. Well, what's the harm, and this might be my only chance to help out Aaron, and it was his idea after all. Thank you. I whisper, nodding my final confirmation as he nods back once before the zone. D of the kitchen door is heard opening. What are we thankful for? Kane's loud voice suddenly fills the space, making himself known as he instantly reaches out to the fruit bowl and grabs himself an apple before taking a large bite from it. I pause, stunned by his sudden intrusion, before my palms grow a little sweaty and my body temperature grows hot. I hope he only heard the last part. I open and close my mouth a couple of times, unsure of what to say having been caught off guard, before Seth comes to the rescue and holds up his now empty can of soda. For the drink. He states casually, crushing it in his hand before standing to throw it in the trash as I nod along with his words and take another slow sip from mine. Kane seems unbothered, which I am thankful for, before he checks his wristwatch. I have another shit meeting in 10, what are your plans? Do you fancy babysitting for a while longer? Kane asks Seth, before turning to throw me a playful wink to avoid causing offense by referring to me as a child. I was actually going out to make some house visits. Seth informs him, as again I grow nervous and antsy knowing now that those visits involved my friend who I had been expressing great concern for since getting here. Happy to take her with me? Get her out of here for an hour or so? Seth suggests, as my eyes widen at the idea. He's offering to take me with him, to visit Aaron. You want to go? Kane suddenly turns to ask me, as I think on it for a second before nodding and chewing my bottom lip anxiously. Great. Have her back for dinner and call me if you need anything. Kane surprisingly doesn't look into it any further, as I smile and offer him a small wave as he heads back for the door again. Things just got way better.